Hi, I'm Jason.
And I'm Vivienne.
And this is Burger of the Week.
Each week we discuss an episode of the Fox animated series Bob's Burgers, and we create a themed burger based on the episode. This week we're talking about Season 1, Episode 12, Lobsterfest. This episode was written by Aaron Adams and Greg Thompson, and was directed by Buon Lim. This episode originally aired May 15th, 2011.
We have no new voice actors this week, but several regulars are back.
Mm-hmm.
The store next door was Magnum GI colonoscopies.
Those are really dumb.
Yeah, it is. The exterminator van again was Rats All Folks. And we had a few burgers of the day. Something's Not Fishy Burger, 100% beef. Neither Fish Nor Fowl Burger, 100% beef. One fish, two fish, red fish, hamburger. Bob really doesn't like Lobsterfest.
No, he's super cranky in this episode. So, before we get into sort of our breakdown, any initial thoughts on this episode?
There's a few highlights, but overall it feels like kind of a meh episode to me.
Yeah? Okay. I remember this episode being really funny, and it is very funny.
Yeah.
But looking at it for this podcast, trying to look at it a little bit more critically, I kind of hate Bob in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And he frustrates me a lot.
Yeah, he is very frustrating in this episode.
So I find it difficult to be very sympathetic towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of changes my feelings about this episode a little bit. I don't like it as much.
A lot of situations that Bob puts himself in this episode are very avoidable.
Yes.
And it is very hard to be sympathetic.
Yeah, he's being quite childish.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get into the weeds. Lobsterfest is back, much to Bob's chagrin. Hugo enters the restaurant to announce his position as Grand Marshal of Lobsterfest. Mort and Teddy come in to chat about the festival. Right away, we know, boom, it's Lobsterfest weekend.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know was an actual thing. Like, people are really intense about lobster.
Yeah, I think it's very popular in, like, coastal towns.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Probably, like, Halifax and PEI and everything all celebrate similar days.
Yeah.
And we do have similar festivals. I'm sure many different cities have their own, like, chili fests.
True.
Rib Fest, of course. And there's also, like, poutine fests, and pretty much, I guess that's probably more popular in Canada, but...
Yeah, if you can't tell, we're Canadian.
Yeah.
By the fact that we said Halifax and PEI instead
right.
of, I don't know, whatever states.
Maine.
Okay, yeah. Whatever states are coastal and have lobster.
Yeah.
I really like that the kids all have brochures for Lobsterfest.
They're all hidden somewhere.
Yeah, so that when Bob steals the brochure from Louise, all the three kids pull out another brochure because clearly they knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, we're going to lose one to Dad.
Yeah.
So.
It's like Louise and Tina have theirs hidden under the table, and then Gene, of course, pulls his out from, like, his armpit or something.
Yeah, and it's a little bit crumpled.
A little bit. Yeah.
You know? Because Gene's a messy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually really like the Carrie joke. We got that kind of callback to Weekend at Mort's.
Yeah.
When we had all those, like, little red visions.
That Bob was having.
But this one made sense.
Made a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel out of place. It worked really well, and that made me laugh really hard when I was watching it. That was great.
I just want to say right off the bat that this episode quality feels off to me.
What do you mean, writing, animation?
No, animation style.
Okay.
It feels very loose and almost over-exaggerated.
Okay.
And it stood out to me for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. It could be that this episode was made earlier.
Yeah, that's possible.
A lot of the facial animations are almost distorted for me. There's a few shots of Gene that look a little weird, and
before he has his allergic
before
reaction.
he has his reaction, yes.
Because I mean, he doesn't always look like that.
And especially there's a few moments of Bob where his features look wrong. So I'm not sure what it is about the episode. Maybe some interns were working on it or something. I'm not sure, but I could be totally alone in this, but the visual animation style looks a little off.
I didn't really notice anything, but maybe some listeners did too while they were watching and agree with you. Yeah. There's another weird moment at the beginning when Mr. Frond walks into Louise's classroom and he has a student admit to everybody in the class that that student rubs his genitals on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And he's goading this kid and making him feel bad about the hurricane, like it's his fault.
Mm-hmm.
But that part was super weird to me. It didn't feel like this show.
No, it felt like it was a very
really
forced gag that, I don't know, it missed.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just very bizarre. And
I think it would have worked a lot better if that part had been cut. So he walks in and he says that. It's like, does anybody here think maybe the hurricane's from something that they did and wants to talk about it? Because that's just a super weird thing to say anyway.
Yeah.
And then to push it further just seemed unnecessary.
Yeah, it felt like a religious joke in a way. And it's a little bit bizarre because primarily Louise in this episode compares Lobsterfest to like a religious holiday. So she says it's like they're Jews on Christmas, that they don't observe Lobsterfest, right? So she's like talking about it as though it's a religious holiday.
Yeah.
And then we get this weird moment from Mr. Frond saying, do you think it's your fault? Like maybe this was caused by something that you did. And it just felt very like religious overtone, sort of like you've sinned and now you're being punished for that
Exactly,
sin.
yeah.
Right? And then, of course, it was something sexual, which just, like, pushed it even further. I don't know. Yeah, it was bad. Because it's, him rubbing his genitals on the couch with masturbation, right? Mm-hmm. And you're always told, in, like, the Catholic Church especially, that you're gonna
go to hell.
You're gonna suffer. No, but it's bad, right? Like, masturbation is a selfish activity, so it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And you will be punished in some way.
And the hurricane is punishing you.
Yeah.
Or God's punishing you with a hurricane.
Yeah. I did kind of like Louise saying, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. Yeah. We're going to die. Because that's just Louise taking it one step further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And immediately we get that Bob is totally against Lobsterfest.
Oh, yeah.
Completely hates it. Mainly because he can't participate in it. I think that's personally his real reason to hate it. Because he is excluded because he has allergic reaction.
Yeah.
So he can't enjoy lobster. So why should anybody else?
Yeah, but it's so selfish and childish,
of course. Absolutely.
And he says, well, I can't make any money off of this. But he could. He absolutely could if he would just stop being so strict about it.
Yeah, he could serve it and make lobster burgers.
Exactly. And not only that, but Lobsterfest is right near his restaurant. So it would be very easy for him to make, lobster burgers or something like that.
He could make bank.
And then advertise them.
For sure.
But instead, he's acting petty. Mm-hmm. And childish in this episode. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know, Bob, not your best moment. Not a shining star.
Teddy.
Oh, Teddy. Yeah, Teddy when he comes in and he's talking about his $49 lobster crusher claw
the shell cracker.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And how he went to the lesbian bar to watch the hockey game.
Okay.
He felt invisible.
Honey, you're always invisible.
Yeah, and nobody's acknowledging him at all.
Oh goodness, yeah. Him and Mort are kind of cute little background characters in this episode. I like it. Yeah.
Especially in their hats later on.
Yeah, those hats are a real thing. I looked it up.
Yeah.
And there are actually hats like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I want one of those for our photo booth. Because that would be pretty funny.
It would be.
Yeah. We already have a fish one.
That's true.
We can get a lobster one. Just saying.
Bob is gleeful when a hurricane hits the town, canceling Lobsterfest. The kids are sent down to the basement to wait out the storm. Bob decides to keep the restaurant open during the hurricane to attract customers. it becomes a party type situation at Bob's Burgers.
Party situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love H. John Benjamin's work in this episode when Bob is talking to Linda and he says, Lobsterfest is canceled.
Yeah.
And I just looked at him and I was like,
gleeful.
oh man, Bob, you were just so petty.
Mm-hmm.
It was fantastic though. That was a moment I did like. Yeah.
There are some really great moments. Absolutely.
So I was thinking to myself, because I've never been in a hurricane, but I've seen them on TV, and they're always sort of considered dangerous. And I was wondering, why are there this many people okay staying inside a restaurant with large windows during a hurricane? Like,
Well,
get into a basement, find safety. Like, what are you doing?
there is a big difference between a hurricane and like a tornado.
Yeah.
So hurricanes are windy, extremely windy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that there's nearly as much danger in a hurricane as there is in a tornado, obviously. I've actually been in a hurricane.
You have?
I have. When I was, I think, close to 10 in Toronto, or
Oh.
just outside of Toronto. I was with my aunt and cousins, and a hurricane just brewed up, and we were trying to get out and run to the car. It was just super windy.
Huh.
Like, super windy.
Yeah, but we see the next day that it hasn't had a big effect on the town.
Yeah.
But I've seen pictures of cities after hurricanes where, you know, trees are down, like things have been
Severe.
blown all the way into someone's house and like wreck their house. Like they can be very severe.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to downplay them because there's
Yeah.
different levels of hurricane, obviously.
Absolutely. And in this one, we see that it's just kind of, you know, that there was a little bit of damage here and there, but nothing extensive.
Yeah.
Still, a little bit unbelievable, I think.
One question I had is, where does he get the electricity to run his grill?
Oh, yeah, we see that the power line goes down.
Yeah, everything's out.
And his power's out. Generator? Bob is too cheap to have a generator.
Bob definitely does not have a generator.
Bob doesn't even have money for a generator.
Mm-hmm.
Power came back on? I doubt it, though.
Mm-hmm. I don't know,
We just have
Continuity.
to suspend our belief at that point.
which is fine. They could have shown us just a quick shot of Bob like cranking up a generator,
Yeah,
but maybe it was cut.
maybe. That's possible.
I didn't like the Linda bit where she goes down to the basement to tell the kids that they're going to have to repopulate.
Yeah,
I thought that was just kind of, again, unnecessary. Just seemed like a miss. Wasn't really funny.
No. So you didn't care for
I did not
Tina
care for Tina's
starting-
making her list. No.
No. Okay.
No.
Yeah, the kids were not that funny in the basement. Thankfully, they didn't really stay there
Yes.
that long. So
Yeah.
I really like when all the lobster maidens come into the restaurant and then Gretchen's talking to Bob and she says, some of the lobster maidens are up for a wet gown contest, want to put up a prize? And he responds with, how about a towel? The shade! Oh my gosh! I just laughed so hard! Bob is so not interested.
Not even remotely.
Not even a little bit. Nope.
Because it's Gretchen.
Do you think it's because it's Gretchen? Or do you think he's just... I mean, there's other lobster maidens, it's not just her.
That's true. I don't know.
I just think Bob's not that interested in that. Gretchen's dress is defying the laws of gravity.
I don't
in this
understand
episode.
her dress whatsoever. It's like, I don't know, it makes her seem thinner maybe because she is so small in it.
But it just makes no sense. If you're looking at it, it's the top part is huge and it extends out to the side and stays rigid.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not filling the bust of the dress, so it shouldn't be staying up. It should be falling down. And it
unless
just
it's
seems
wired.
Like, yeah, but no, even then. No, that's... You would be able to very clearly see her breasts, let's just say. So, it's a weird animation choice. I don't understand why they decided to make her dress so wide.
Costume design was a little off.
Yeah, it really felt like it. And when we see her in later episodes, she is like a bit of a larger woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
She's definitely busty.
Yeah, and she's totally busty, but like her clothes seems to fit her.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a weird one. Our last thing I want to say about this part is the, what? You're into mailmen? Well, if they have an important route. And all I could think of was, Kinsey scale. He's definitely on the Kinsey scale. He's not totally straight. All right. The kids head out into the storm to loot but find a lobster instead. Bob rejoices in his sudden popularity and offers free food and drinks. The party gets out of control, and the next morning, the restaurant is trashed.
Bob, your decision-making, questionable.
Yeah, sometimes drunk Bob can be charming and sweet. Like, he'll just sing and he'll do some silly stuff, but he won't make a complete ass of himself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what he does in this episode. He just kind of ticks me off.
Yeah.
This is the moment where I stop liking him, because him deciding for him and Linda, like, they own this business together, and him just deciding that he's not going to charge anybody because friends don't charge friends is beyond stupid. We just saw a couple episodes ago that he has been having a hard time making his rent.
Yep.
And that they're not very successful. So he should be taking this opportunity to make more money. And
capitalize on all of his business that he's getting, and he doesn't at all. And it is completely irresponsible.
Mm-hmm. I would just be in like a complete rage if I was Linda.
He's valuing connections more than money at this point. He thinks he's making connections with all these people, but he's not. That's the thing. They don't care about Bob at this point. They're just there because they have nowhere else to be. The food is free. The drinks are free. He just happens to be the host. Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking of it, you said at the beginning that the reason you think he doesn't like Lobsterfest is because he's excluded, right? So now he's rejoicing because he gets to be the center of attention, right?
Yeah, it's Lobsterfest.
He feels excluded, but now he's finally able to be part of it. Mm-hmm. And he's just going way too far with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could have at least, like, maybe half price or something, or, you know.
I think people would have been having fun either way. I don't think they would have cared if they got charged, because they were enjoying themselves.
Exactly.
And if you're out at a restaurant and you're having drinks and you're having good food and you're with a bunch of people and you're having fun, you don't usually care that you're being charged.
You expect to pay.
Exactly. I don't know. The whole thing was just
frustrating.
Yeah, very. Yeah. I do like Bob waking up the next morning with a hangover. And just the way H. Don Benjamin does that part where he says, Linda, I don't feel good. It's just,
Linda.
It's just perfect. And also, I'm thinking, yeah, well, you deserve that.
Yeah, you brought this on yourself.
I am 100% Linda looking over him with one hell of an angry face.
Yep. Oh, there's my wife. Oh, she looks angry. Turn me around.
Let's go the other way.
Yeah. That should have been your clue, Bob.
Yeah. Really should have been.
The kids secretly cook and eat their first lobster. Bob is angry Lobsterfest is back on and takes the stage, lashing out at the town. Bob falls into the butter vat after being hit by a cop's beanbag gun. Despite the butter being contaminated, Lobsterfest stays on track. The episode ends with Hugo beginning a surprise inspection of the restaurant. Shut it down.
Shut her right down. So, earlier I mentioned that Louise has been kind of making a connection to Lobsterfest and religion. Mm-hmm. And then we see in this moment with her siblings that lobster suddenly becomes like a metaphor for sex.
Mm-hmm.
which is again weird. What's up with that? It just seems like a very bizarre connection.
Yeah.
So
the jokes, I kind of like that joke.
do you prefer it to the connection to like a religious holiday?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's my first time eating lobster. My first time eating lobster. I think it's funny because they're kids.
Okay. So they clearly wouldn't get the implication?
Right.
Well, except maybe Tina.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think they understand it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's funnier for a viewer, I think, because we see them as kids and not realizing what they're saying.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
kids say the darndest things, right?
Okay.
Without even knowing it. So that bit works for me. Yeah.
I think I would have liked it a little bit more if Tina had been the only one making that connection, but not realizing it, because it would have been funny because she's so obsessed with
Right.
romance and like sex,
And
right?
for her to completely miss the connection would have been great.
Would have been great. And we also have Louise not making that connection with Lobster. Hers is that it'll be her last meal in prison where she is paying the super price for her super crimes.
Yeah, of course.
And that's hilarious and totally in character for Louise. But if they had something like Jean at a future concert and people were throwing lobsters on the stage instead of flowers, that could have been funny. But instead, they made a connection to like groupies and having sex with, you know, your fans after and doing that every day, but with different girls, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't feel right for Jean. And then it didn't really work because it wasn't like all three of them were making that connection.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the two.
Yeah, just Jean and Tina, which is a little weird.
And Jean is not at all obsessed with sex. He doesn't really think about it.
He doesn't even think about girls, really.
No. His is all music. So I just feel like that would have been a better.
But at the same time, he does make he alludes to another sex joke earlier on in the episode.
That's true.
With the band.
Yeah.
I can't.
John Van Hoyt and the musical Extrusion or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So, you know, his dad saying, "You were conceived to that."
To a JVH song.
Yeah, and Jean saying, "And I plan to return the favor."
Yeah.
So that's definitely a...
Yeah, but that felt kind of like a Jean joke. Like, okay, that's kind of funny, and he's making his dad a little bit uncomfortable in that moment. But to go as far as to say that Jean's gonna be the type to, you know, sleep with different girls every night just didn't feel right.
Yeah. Now that we're thinking about it, I forgot to mention earlier on in the episode, at the very beginning, when the kids are hiding their brochure, Louise saying, we're just looking at pictures of people doing it. Yeah. And Bob saying, "Oh, okay. Wait, that's not porn." He was going to be totally fine with that.
Yeah.
He said that way too, like, oh, okay.
Casually and
way
accepting.
Too casual.
Yeah.
I liked it, though.
Yeah, I don't know. The jokes are just bizarre in this episode. The weird connections to lobster and religion and sex is just odd. I don't know. Doesn't work for me that well.
For me, Louise holding the lobster over the boiling bucket of water. I personally don't think she would have put the lobster in.
Really?
She would not have dropped it. And I'm only basing that on the fact that she held it over the pot and said, "Okay, here I go." But she wasn't going to do anything. It's like she was psyching herself up to doing it. But at the end of the day, she's still a 9-year-old girl. She's still a kid. I don't think she would have killed the lobster. And that is what would have happened, obviously. She would be killing the lobster. And as much as she talks big and is kind of out there, I don't think she would have done it.
Interesting.
And I see that illusion again with Bob at the end of the episode with his foot over the butter saying, "You know, I'm not a bottom feeder. This isn't who I am. I was going to do it, but then now I'm not. So you have Louise and Bob in the same situations. It was a great parallel to see Louise and Bob in situations where they're going to do something in liquid. They're both in like the same situation.
Okay.
And not going through with it until something accidentally forces them to both do what they were threatening to do. Louise only drops the lobster because it slipped out of her hand or it pinched her. Mm-hmm. And Bob only backs down. Well, backs down because he gets shot.
Yeah, and then falls into the butter vat. Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. I didn't notice that connection. Huh. Yeah, that's great, actually, because we're, again, putting a connection between Bob and Louise and noticing their similarities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that maybe they kind of tend to over-exaggerate.
Yeah.
And they have a tendency to be dramatic, but when it comes down to it, they aren't mean people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Not that either of those acts are necessarily really mean or vicious, but...
Yeah, people eating lobster doesn't make them a mean person. But...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever eaten a lobster? I know you're not a big fan of fish, but have you ever been offered?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
I've had shrimp.
Okay.
I had a bite of shrimp.
And you hated
once.
it?
No, it was not for me.
Yeah. Jason's definitely not a seafood kind of person.
Nope.
I've had lobster once.
Oh, really?
And it was a terrifying and disgusting experience because it was at a random friend of the family's house. And he decided to cook lobster for everybody. But instead of giving everyone like a full lobster, he cut the lobsters in half. So then when it was plated for me, it was just half a lobster. So I was getting a cross section of it, and I could see the eye. There was still an eye on it. I could see its brain, which apparently I was supposed to eat, but I was just terrified. And I was just supposed to kind of pick it out of the shell, and it was awful.
Sounds awful.
It definitely pushed me to be vegetarian because I looked at it and thought, this is horrifying, and I don't want to look at the lobster this way.
Yeah.
Ugh, yeah, it was very uncomfortable. Not a fan. So that was the only time I had lobster. I'm sure that if it had been under better circumstances, I could have enjoyed it more. Mm-hmm. Like if it was at a restaurant, it was just like a lobster tail that was presented to me, and there was no shell. Maybe that would have been okay.
Lobster to me is so unique as a food because I can't think of anything else that we eat without skinning it or peeling it or
shellfish, like some shellfish, like crabs.
Right. So seafood, I guess all crustaceans, all shellfish are in a similar situation, but you don't do anything to prepare it. You can just boil it and then that's it. It's done. You can marinate it. You can do all these things, but at the end of the day, you can just eat crab just by itself. You just crack it open and eat it.
You could do the same with a piece of steak, though. You don't have to season it at all. You can just throw it on your
that's what I'm saying.
stove.
You can't take the cow and just dump it in a pot of water.
Yeah, good point. Okay.
There's no other meats that I can think of.
Where you can just do that.
Yeah, where you can just do that.
And
although there are fish you can do that with. A lot of people serve like the full fish.
Yeah.
But something about lobster to me is super barbaric.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know, because you just crack it open and like just tear it apart.
Yeah, and you're sucking the meat and juices right out of it.
I'm sure I'm making a lot of people hungry for lobster, but
either that or really feeling kind of nauseous, which is what my main feeling is.
Yeah, and it's just such a bizarre food. Yeah. Anyway, that's my lobster rant.
Yeah. So, I like the songs in this episode, though. They are kind of funny. We get at the end Ron singing to Hugo the Wingman song. Wingman. Wingman.
Yeah, it's fun.
Also, how clueless is Hugo?
Oh my god. The diagrams.
And him being so confused by it.
Yeah.
And I love that the next day we see on the chalkboard that the diagrams are still up.
Yeah.
But the chalkboard's back up.
Yeah.
So Linda put the chalkboard back up, but didn't erase it.
She probably thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, that's true. And then we get our sexy 70s porno music when Gretchen is licking the food thermometer.
Yeah.
And then when Bob is kind of playing with that little
the broken spindle. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Totally ridiculous. But it's nice now that I'm really looking for those kind of musical moments in every episode. It's nice to be able to actually notice them.
Yeah.
You know, and
Instead
not sort
of
of
just
have
like
in the
background
background.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, talking about the first moment with Gretchen and that food thermometer, super gross.
Yeah.
But when she's doing everything kind of in slow-mo and it's cutting and fading into the next shot, and she puts it in his pocket and like freezes, Hugo's eyes just look up in normal speed, like in real speed, and she's just still frozen there. So I feel like that's actually what happened. Like she just like put it in his pocket and froze, and Hugo and just stopped doing anything, and Hugo's like looking up, and the scene continues. Like, what's going on? Is she gonna do something else? Like, what's going on here?
Oh, I love that. The idea that Gretchen is just so awkward.
She's just frozen
in her
there.
Flirtation.
Yeah.
And Hugo is so awkward that they're both kind of frozen in the moment,
Like,
wondering
what do we do? Yeah.
That's perfect. I think that Gretchen and Hugo should have lasted longer. I think it would have been a funny relationship.
Yeah.
Especially when Hugo's saying, give me some room, and then she backs him up.
Give him some room.
They would have been so good. I wish that they had kept them together for maybe just a couple episodes or maybe a season, something like that.
Yeah, just pop in and out and like, oh, Gretchen, how's your boyfriend? How's Hugo?
Yeah, or just being able to see them together because they are quite the funny pair.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about our episode before we get to our burgers of the week?
We see Marshmallow in this episode.
What? When?
We don't hear her. She doesn't say anything. But at the end of the episode, when the angry mob is gathered, she's in front and center.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of neat. Just to throw her in there.
And we will see her again.
Yes, of course. Another thing about this episode that I don't really like is the big cliche ending. Angry mob being calmed down by a big speech.
Yeah, okay.
It's something that... It's a trope that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes can be overused. And happened all the time on South Park. And they even made a big bit about that. Like, oh my god, this happens every time. There's always a big public declaration or a big speech. And we all learn something. And everybody goes home.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what happened.
Pretty much. I mean, they get their way.
Yeah.
And Bob hasn't really derailed the celebrations enough. So I feel like it's not too bad. It's not as though Bob actually ruined Lobsterfest.
Yeah.
If he had, I think it would have bothered me more that we had that trope in there. But because we see that everyone's okay with dipping their lobster into butter that has
Bob's
skin
butter
flakes and... Ugh. Okay.
Fingernails.
And we're getting nauseous over here.
All right, we can move on to our burgers of the week.
Yes, please. Okay.
I have two.
I have two as well. Not a huge fan of mine this week, so we'll see how that goes.
I'm enjoying mine. I think they're half decent.
Well, then I might just give it to you, so we'll see. All right, what's your first burger?
I have allergic reaction.
Oh my god. Okay, that's like better than both of mine right there.
So obviously we're using brie for the cheese. And
would it be lobster?
No.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. That would be too easy.
Well, then how am I supposed to get my allergic reaction on?
If you're allergic to cheese. If you're lactose intolerant.
Oh, I guess so. Okay. All right. My first burger is the Total Shell Out burger.
Okay.
It would be a patty made of haddock, shrimp, and scallops.
Whoa. That is one meat patty. Or fish patty.
Yeah. And it would have scallions and Dijon mustard. So it would probably be pretty tasty. No lobster, but it's fishy. What's your second burger?
Prawn with the wind.
My God, I love it.
And I was thinking, well, that doesn't really have much to do with Gone with the Wind, but there's a hurricane.
Oh my God.
It's windy.
Okay.
Prawn with the Wind. Obviously, it's a prawn burger.
Oh, I love it. It's so good. Okay, and my last one sucks, so I shouldn't even say it, because...
Now I want to hear it.
You're
not upselling
even good.
it.
It's Catch of the Bay, so it would be trout... It would be I know, it's terrible. It would be a trout and tuna burger with crushed bay leaves, carrots, celery, and garlic.
Interesting.
So it'd be kind of like, I don't know, a patty made with a bunch of stuff.
Catch of the Bay.
It's not good.
I thought you were going to do like a ketchup pun. Ketchup the day.
Oh, no. That would be terrible.
Yeah,
a burger with ketchup.
That's like when Bob has no inspiration.
No. I had a hard time coming up with ones for this episode because I was trying really hard to stay away from lobster.
Exactly.
And, I mean, this is an episode where we could have gone with the lobster, but I think
too predictable.
Too obvious.
Yeah. Too on the nose.
I really love your Prawn with the Wind.
Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like that one should win.
So you prefer that one over Allergic Reaction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, well, how about we call it?
All right, that's our burger of the week.
I'll take it. And for the birthday boy, I appreciate it.
Oh, yes. It was Jason's birthday this past Friday. And now you are into your 30s. Truly.
Yes. I'm diving in head first.
Oh.
All right, well.
Like a lobster? Wait, they don't dive.
On that note, you're as bad as Linda.
I know, right?
All right, well, that brings us to the end of Burger of the Week, a Multiverse Radio production. Thank you so much for listening, and if you like our show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes. We really appreciate it, and it helps other people find our show.
Yeah.
And experience Bob's Burgers, whether for the first time or the 100th time.
Yeah, and there is another Bob's Burgers podcast, but, if you really like this one, then let us know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can listen to both.
Yeah, you can listen to both. Go ahead.
We'll allow it. We'll look the other way.
I mean, probably.
If you have any comments or a punny burger name that you'd like to share, something that maybe beats Prawn with the Wind.
I don't know if you can. That's
challenge.
Pretty damn good.
You can find us on Twitter at Multiverse Radio or Facebook at Multiverse Radio Podcast. You can also visit our website at, you guessed it, multiverseradio.ca. And see you next week for a review of episode 13, Torpedo.
Torpedo!
The next episode is also the season 1 finale.
Yes, so we'll be diving into season 2, which is a shorter season.
Yes.
And kind of nice that we'll be able to have, finally, a new exterminator van every episode.
Yes, thank goodness. Rats All Folks is getting a little old.
Yep, getting a little old. I mean, you served us well, girl, but we want to see new people. New exterminators.
We want to see new exterminators.
Yeah.
There's a lot of exterminators in this city.
I know. I like it. All right, we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.